But what if you could retain twice as much, maybe in a fraction of the time? How much more effective would you be? Because I believe the faster you can learn, the faster you could earn. When you can remember things like someone's name, when you could give I train a lot of the TED speakers how to memorize their TED Talks. If you could give, I remember a sales script or speaking points to your product or service, you come across as more of an expert, more as somebody who cares. And those are the people we reward the most. Right? The people that, I believe today knowledge is not just power, knowledge is profit. And I don't just mean financial profit, I mean all the treasures of your life. When they usually come to me, it's usually if I'm from an audience, and I'll ask them, what would you like to learn? If there's any one problem I could help you solve, what would it be? And it's kind of interesting just stepping back, because if you had a magic lamp, and a genie was to grant you one wish, what would you wish for? You would wish for like more wishes. That would be like the hack, right? Mm-hmm. If I was a learning genie and I could help anyone learn just one subject or one skill, Mandarin, martial arts, music, marketing, anything, what would you want to learn? And the answer along the lines of asking for more wishes, well, if I could learn anything, it would be learning how to learn. Because if I can learn how to learn, I could apply that towards anything. It's really a forced multiplier. And so I focus on learning how to learn, or this thing called meta-learning. Like meta-thinking is thinking about your thinking. Meta-learning is learning how to learn. And I think it is the most important skill to master in the 21st century, because everything else is changing, right? And companies know this. Companies like the ones you mentioned, they know that the only constant is change, and it's like Moore's law and half-life information, and we feel like we're drowning information, but we're starving for like real practical, usable wisdom, right? And so I think the ability to learn faster is the most important skill. Now, I read recently that the average graduate versus a school graduate is going to have anywhere from 8 to 14 different careers. Maybe even different verticals, because the world is changing so rapidly with technology, but it's also creating, a lot of issues. But when it comes down to it, I come in to do something like training them how to be more productive, specifically around learning. So for example, the average person has to process information about 4 or 5 hours a day. And I think a lot of your viewers, they can relate to that. Like, how many books on your shelf do you have that you haven't read yet, right? How many emails do you get a day? I mean, we're inundated, right? And so 4 or 5 hours a day of processing information. But if I could help double your reading speed, for example, and you could save 2 hours a day, 2 hours a day over the course of a year is 730 hours. But even if you save 1 hour a day, you save 365 hours a year. That's how many 40-hour work weeks? That's 9 40-hour work weeks. 2 months of productivity you get back just saving 1 hour a day. So forget about time management. This doesn't even take time. It actually makes time. But the reason I do that for companies is if 4 or 5 hours a day is spent like reading and processing information, that means half of their salary is being paid just to read. That means if someone's getting paid, $50,000, that means half of that is 25 is being paid just to process information. So it's the largest line item, human capital is the largest line item for a company, right? Payroll and everything. And so that's an issue, information overload, because it also leads to a lot of health challenges, as you know. When people have information overload, they call it information fatigue syndrome. Higher blood pressure, compression of leisure time, more sleeplessness, all the things that make you not your best. And if they're not good, in their personal life, then they're definitely not going to be good also in their professional life in terms of their efficiency.
Like you can't read a book on doing like push-ups and get benefit from that. It just doesn't work, right? So you have to do the work. So I'm asking myself, how can I use this? And I'm coming up with all these ideas. That's the creativity part. And then I'm asking, why must I use this? Because if it's not a must, you're not going to do it because you have plenty of other things to do. Is that fair? Because there's a success formula you capture on the left side of your page: head, heart, hands. You could think about things in your mind, set goals in your head, and affirmations, KPIs, your objectives. But if you're not acting with your hands and you're procrastinating, raise your hand if you ever procrastinated before. Right? All of us. If there's a gap between your head and your hands, check in with the second H, which is your heart. Right? The emotion. We do things emotionally. We are emotional creatures. We're not logical, we're biological. Dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, we're this chemical soup, and so we want to be able to activate that. So head, heart, hands, another way of putting it are our eyes. Information, That's good, great. But sometimes you can listen to a podcast, it's a lot of information, but there's no inspiration to use it. Fair? But sometimes you can listen to a speaker or learn something and it's inspiring, but you don't know what to do. Right? Is that fair? So you have information, you have inspiration, and then you have implementation, where you're doing it. And I feel like when you get all three I's together, you have the most powerful I, which is integration. That's my goal for all of you, is that when you read something, you listen to something, you learn something, it becomes part of who you are. It's integrated. Here, here, and here. And then you have an alignment, and how it performs is it looks like magic to people. When somebody is aligned and they're in their element, it looks like it's effortless. These flow states, it's powerful. It's three parts to it that I focus on. How many of you have ever been in a zone? And that's how it is when I'm reading. Like, people think that just because our program's called Kwik Brain and Quick Learning and Quick Reading, it's frantic fast. It's not at all. It's just, there's a piece to it. It's like somebody who's fit and has strategies. If they have to climb a mountain, it looks like it's effortless because they've just done the work, and they have strategy, and they have tools to be able to do so. And somebody who maybe doesn't have those resources, it's more effort. Is that fair? So actually learning how to do these things, it's easier. Like, when I read a book, I still read a book a day. It's just part of my practice. It's part of my mental hygiene. And I feel like it's the number one exercise, because reading is to your mind like exercise is to your body. And some of you are already doing this, so I'm preaching to you, so I'm gonna show you how to do it better. But those of you who aren't on the other spectrum reading at all, the average person reads like 2 books a year. Now, if you're reading like more than that, that means somebody's reading a lot less, right? On the other side. But it's the best exercise for your brain. People ask me all the time, how do I keep my brain young and how do I keep it energetic? And as I grow older, reading. But the problem is a lot of people don't indulge in it because they're not good at it. And I wouldn't be playing a lot of golf if I was horrible at it all the time. But in psychology, they have something called the confidence-competence loop. That the more competent you get at something, the more confident you get at it. And then the confidence will make you do it more, and you get more confidence, and then it cycles through in positive momentum, right? And you have examples of that in your own life. So what I'm asking about here, the second part, is the inspiration, is why must I use this? And you know what a question I ask a lot of is like, who's counting on me to win today? You know what I mean? First, because some of you, and I bring this up because some of you really will do more for other people than you will for yourself. So knowing that about yourself, self-awareness is a superpower, then tap into that. You don't have to change it, tap into it. Who's counting on me to like be at my best? And then you're more likely to do it. And the reason I know this is because when I was driven so much, it was really my family who I wanted to make proud. Like, we all have our reasons, right? And one of my favorite books, I'm gonna probably give you 12 of them, in this conversation, is Start With Why. It's a must-read book by Simon Sinek. And you want to start with your why because reasons reap results. Reasons reap results. And even remembering people's names, if you don't have a reason to remember their name, you don't. Like, how many of you have trouble remembering people's names? Raise your hand. See, this is the thing. You don't remember everyone's name, but you sure as heck don't forget everyone's name either, right? So there's always, genius leaves clues. You can write that down. Genius leaves clues. There's always a method behind the magic.
For me, really, it comes down to what can people do today, right? And the reason why I'm so excited, passionate about this is because when people see me do these things, they know I read a book a day and can memorize, all these people's names and do all this stuff. I always tell people after I do these demos that I don't do this to impress you. I do to express to you what's really possible. Because the truth is, every single person watching this could do that and a lot more. And most people are automatically like, there's no way. But here's the thing, you just weren't taught. You weren't taught. If anything, we were taught a lie. A lie that somehow our intelligence, our potential, something like our memory is somehow fixed like our shoe size. And it's absolutely not true. We've discovered more about the human brain, more in the past 10 years than the previous 1,000 years. And what we found is we're grossly underestimating our own capabilities. The story, the illustrations, these themes that we talk about continually, like hope and offering real help, discovering your superpower. And when I talk about modern day superheroes, I think the world needs modern day superheroes that have powers, right? But not leaping over tall buildings and shooting lasers out of your eyes. I mean, our unique talents, our unique strengths, our unique abilities, if you will, and discovering them and then developing them, because that's the path. I know anyone who's watching this right now knows what I'm saying, because they wouldn't be watching, they wouldn't be attracted to these kind of themes if they, about growth and grit and such, and success. But just having a superpower doesn't make us a superhero, not alone. You have to use that superpower to serve, right? You need to use it to make the world a better place, if you will. And I think that's what the modern day superheroes are doing right now. Because here's really the basis of my work is really about taking nouns and turning them into verbs. So what do I mean by that? It's like so many people, they wake up and say, oh, I hope I have energy today, or I have motivation today, things that they have, right? I have creativity so I can write today or make videos, or I have memory, or I have focus or concentration. Those aren't things you have, those are things you do. And so you don't have love, you do loving things. You don't have energy, you do things that give you energy. Just like that applies, same thing with learning. You don't have focus, there's a process for doing focus. You don't have a memory, there's steps to improve your memory or to remember things better. Creativity is not something you have, there's actually a process for creativity. So you should never suffer from writer's block or anything else like that, because that's where, if you don't understand how you work, when I was talking about self-awareness and understanding ourselves, I think if somebody wants to improve their esteem, the self-esteem overnight, just study your brain. Like you'll get a boost of confidence and pride like instantly, because it is the most incredible, I don't even know what to call it, a device, a supercomputer, what, in the whole universe. It's not just about going out to Mars and all these other places. I want to go in here, because this controls what? Everything, our careers, our income, our health, our relationships, whether or not you get, complete. We were talking about this before our conversation here. When you're training for Ironman and triathlons and everything else, is how much of it is mental? Like we know, like everyone knows what to do, but do they do what they know? Because common sense is not common practice. And it's a myth that knowledge is power. Knowledge it has the potential to be power, but it only becomes power when we use it, when we apply it. Like people think they should get points for buying books and sitting on the shelf, and it just sits there and it becomes like shelf help, not self-help, right? Self-help, yeah. Or somebody will go and learn something, or listen to a podcast like this, or a show, or they'll go to a conference, they'll pay all this money, but they don't do anything with what they learn. And part of it also is because they forget it. Everyone knows there's a learning curve, but there's also a forgetting curve. Did you know, like the forgetting curve says that if you learn something once, within 48 hours, 80% of it is gone. 80%. So you listen to a show, you watch something, on YouTube, you go to a conference, you read a book, within 2 days, the majority of it is gone, because nobody trains us how to have, that's why memory is so important. Okay. And so the first thing, don't touch your phone, because it's training you to be distracted. The second thing is training you for, which is almost worse. I don't know what's worse, being punched in the face, kicked in the stomach, I don't know. But the second thing that's worse is it's training you, rewiring your brain to be reactive, meaning that you're in this relaxed state of awareness when you first wake up. You pick up your phone, you get one text with bad news, or one voicemail, or one email, and this has all happened to us. You're in a bad mood for the rest of your day because you're so impressionable. You're in that hypnotic state, and it affects you. And you can never have a quality life, with that, and be the best version of ourselves, be an elite mental performer, high performer, when you're responding and reacting to everybody else. My friend Brendan Burchard says, an inbox is nothing but a convenient organizational system for other people's agenda for your life. And how can you have vision for your life? Like for me, the night before, like I did a whole episode on my morning routine, like 10 things I do every morning to jumpstart my brain. Yeah. And I also have an evening 1 hour routine to get into sleep, to maximize my sleep. Sleep is so very important to be able to do. But one of the processes I do, besides blackout curtains and cold and temperatures and breath and stuff, meditation, is I don't touch a screen, right? Because it creates blue light. And most people should know this. The screen on your laptop, your phone, everything else emits this blue light, which inhibits the melatonin production, which helps you to relax and go to sleep. So no screens. But the other thing I do is I write down the 3 things I want to accomplish the next day personally, and the other 3 are professionally. So now when I wake up, I have a vision for my life. Like this is a win today if I just get these 3 things done personally and 3 things professionally. And when it comes to my phone, I don't touch my phone until I get at least 1 thing done. and that's my test. You know, if I could just do that, and it's not always perfect, you know, but it's about progress, right? Because practice makes progress, right? And there's never going to be a perfect. And I think people need to find what works for them. But I would say again, to step out is don't trust yourself as the expert instead of somebody else, and test it. You know, maybe for 1 week, keep your phone outside your bedroom for just 1 week and don't touch it for the first hour a day, and spend the first hour a day being a thermostat, not a thermometer. Like, I really do believe a lot of your guests—
Set the temperature.
Exactly.
Right.
Because a thermometer, what's a function? It reacts to the environment. And that's a kind of crappy way to like live. Not that we do react to the environment. We react to the weather, right? We react to how clients treat us. We react, but to the degree we're happy is that we have the locus, the location of control inside, right? All the studies show that the happiest people are the ones that feel like they have the control over their happiness and not put it to somebody else, a person or a place or something going on in the economy or politics or anything, right? So a thermometer reacts to the environment, but a thermostat's different. What does that function? It sets the environment. It sets a goal, it sets a temperature, and then the environment raises to it. And so I feel like anyone who's attracted to your work or to mine, they're thermostats because they have a growth mindset. Because if they thought things were fixed, they wouldn't watch something like this, because what's the point? It's just all predestined and it's set.